Hello world, welcome to my live. This is Godiva. I have some ham for her today. You want some, Godiva? I'm trying to let you see the kitties today because my video is about them today. Because I learned something this week. Gwynnie is scared to get up here though. She thinks something's up. But there's Godiva eating some ham. You want some, baby? Here it is, baby. Here it is. Here it is, Gwynnie. Come here, baby. Come here. She doesn't want to get up on the bench. Godiva does, though. Here you go. Is that good? Did you get it, huh? Here. Do you see Gwynnie right there? There's Gwynnie. Gwynnie. Here. Gwynnie. Gotta have a piece for Godiva. Here, Gwynnie. Here it is, Gwynnie. Come on, Gwynnie. Godiva will get hers. You want yours, Godiva? Gwynnie. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Come up here where we can see you. She's like, nope. It's right here, baby. She goes, I want it really bad, but I don't want to come up, so I'm giving it to her. So, my live tonight, that's all I have, but I may not get rid of them now. I know I'm taking a risk by giving them a ham. That we may have permanent cats in the live tonight, but that's okay. But, here's Godiva looking at me for more, aren't you, baby? You want to say hi to the people? This is Miss Godiva. Yeah, this is Miss Godiva. She's a little braver than Guinevere. Am I joking you? Hi, Gwynnie. You can come up here, baby. Maybe she'll come later. She probably won't, though. So, my live tonight, I am calling Trusting in a Cage. So, this is what happened this last week. I got, in my apartment, the most dreaded letter that comes to me every year in this apartment complex, and probably any apartment complex. It says, we are coming to inspect your fire sprinklers and fire alarm system. Now, my mother has her own reason for absolutely hating and dreading that statement, because in her condo, it's so loud, and she's there. She's there, she doesn't leave. And so it's so loud, it's very jarring to her nerves and her ears, and she can't hardly stand it. Here, when they come and inspect my fire system, I'm not here, usually. I'm at work. There was one year I was here because I happened to be on vacation, but usually I'm at work, so it doesn't bother me. But what I dread about the letter is mine says, if you have any pets, they must be confined to a cage for our safety. Now, my cats do not pose any safety threat to people, I don't believe. I don't think they're aggressive. I don't think, they're just scared. They'd run and hide. I don't think they would try to hurt anybody. They have never, well, they're never around anybody but me, but they are not even aggressive to each other. I don't think they'd hurt anybody, but still, we're required to put animals in a cage, and I'm like, oh, great. So I had to do this once before, and it was shortly after I'd had them. Now, my cats were feral cats originally. They weren't really socialized when they were little. They were probably about 4 months old or so when I got them. A friend of mine at work found them in a field with a whole bunch of other cats. And she was trying to find homes for them. And so I took 2 of them. And she had them all neutered and, brought me these 2 cats. And they were so scared. They were so petrified because they weren't used to people. She had been feeding them, so they kind of knew her, but they kept their distance. And she managed to trap them in these, like animal traps. And she brought them to me, and we let them out, and they were just terrified. And they tried to run through my mirrors, and they tried because they thought it was another room, and they were just so scared. And it took me a couple of months to be able to win their trust, because they just didn't know anybody, and they're still scared of other people. But they're not scared of me now, and they do pretty much trust me now. But there was one year that I actually was home when they did the fire inspection, so I didn't have to put my cats in a cage, because I'm like, oh, good. And they never even came in my apartment, because it even says we might come in your apartment. So apparently they just randomly inspect some of them. So you never even know if they're going to come in your apartment or not, or what they're going to do. So, but it still says you're required to put them in a cage, and I had to go to work. So the first year that I did it, they had never been in any kind of cage since they've been in my house. They have their own room, which I have it's where I have their food and their water, their litter boxes, everything in this one room. And I keep them in this room when I'm not here. It's a whole bedroom they have to themselves. And I keep them in there when I'm not at home for their own safety, because the people that own the apartment building, they can just come in your apartment at any time and they spray for bugs 4 times a year. If they had to check something that was like water leaking or something, they can just come in your apartment and fix something. And they're supposed to let you know ahead of time, but they don't. If it was an emergency, they couldn't. And they're not real good at letting you know ahead of time. So I'm always afraid that they're going to let them out the door if I just have the cats roaming in the apartment. So every time when I am not home, they are in their own bedroom, and they're actually thrilled with it. They love their own bedroom. Even when I open the door and let them out, when I'm home, they'll come out and greet me and go back in there. So they love it. They have a big window. They love to watch the birds out that window. So they love their room. And like I said, it has their food and their water and everything in there. Hello, Godiva. What are you doing, baby? And so they're good with the room. But there's, fire stuff they have to inspect in there. So it says they have to have them in a cage. So before I had cats, I'd never had cats before. So before I had cats, I had a dog. And at her highest weight was about 45, 48 pounds. So it was a fairly big dog. And so I had a kennel for her, which is a cage. This is a big cage that you almost could have put a German Shepherd in. It's a cage I could crawl in. So it's a big cage. It's not a cat cage. It's plenty of room in this big cage. But it's the only one I had. So I put it all together, put it in their bedroom, and left it there for a little while for them to get used to it. Of course, they're scared of anything new you put in there. And I started putting treats in the cage every day to get them to want to go in the cage. Well, they were scared of it. And, it has a big open door gate thing, a big open doorway. But they would only put their front paws in there, and they wouldn't go all the way in the first year. And so when it came time for me to have to go to work that day, where they said, they're coming to inspect, I put the treats in the cage for them, and I had to take their little bottoms and push them in and shut the door. And that did not go over well. They panicked. They were so scared. They were like just tearing round and round and round in this cage, wanting out. And I felt so terrible, but I had no choice. Unless I took the day off of work, I had to go to work. And when I got home, they were not happy. They were, hi, Guinevere. They were, she's looking for more ham. They, kept their distance from me. They didn't want to go back in the room. I could hardly get them to go back in the whole, not just the cage. I couldn't get them go back in their room. They didn't want to go back in their room at all. No, we don't want to eat in there. No, we don't want to drink our water in there. No, we don't want to go in the room. It took days for them to feel like they weren't being, tricked again. And so when I got this letter again last week that said, it's time to inspection again, I'm like, oh no. Oh no. They're going to hate me. They're going to hate me. I'm going to have to trick them again. They're going to hate me. They're going to hate me. They're going to hate me. So instead of the cat treats this time, and the cage has been, I just left the cage in there because it's a lot of work to put together. And I don't want them to be triggered that every time I start putting the cage in there, that they'll know what's coming. So I just leave this cage in there. And I started putting pieces of ham in there. Oh my goodness, so they love ham. Whew. So I started putting little teeny weeny pieces of ham in there several days ahead. And yeah, I'm just tricking them again. And so they would go in the cage and lick up this ham. And as they were eating little teeny pieces of ham, I'm emptying their litter boxes. I'm changing their water. So I'm going about my normal routine that they're used to. So they're watching me like, oh, it's okay. Oh, it's okay. And so I knew the day was coming, though, when it was not going to be okay, because I was just getting them used to eating something they liked in this cage again. And so on the final day when I had to go to work, I put and they had gotten to where they were going all the way in the cage this time. They must not have remembered before, but they were going I think they just wanted the ham that bad. They were going all the way in. And so the final day that I had to put them in there, I put all this ham in there. They went in, and while they were busy, I very quietly and easily closed the door and latched it, and they didn't realize it at first. And then suddenly my little tabby cat Gwenny turned around and saw that her opening of the cage was gone. It was now like a wall. And she looked at that, and her eyes got this big, and she looked up at me, and she looked, and it was like I could see on her face, oh no, oh no. And it was like, what's going to happen? What is going to happen? What are you going to do? What is going to happen to us? Why? Why have you put us in this cage? Why have you done this? And Godiva, who is a little bit of a piggy, was just eating her ham, and like, I don't care. She was eating her ham. She wasn't paying attention. She loves to eat. And Gwenny started going to the cage and putting her paws through it, trying to get out. And then by the time, and I'm talking to her saying, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's going to be okay. I'm going to come home later. It's going to be okay. Nothing's going to hurt you. Nothing's going to happen. It's going to be okay. And if big bad people come in the apartment, it's still going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But she's looking at me. And then Godiva suddenly realized, after the ham was gone, she suddenly realized, wait a minute, I can't get out of here. She started like crashing into the walls of the cage. They started tearing through the cage. Gwenny started going, meow, meow, meow. And I looking at me crying. And I'm like, I'm gonna cry. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's gonna be okay. I promise it's gonna be okay. But I couldn't make them understand. And all day at work, I thought they're gonna hate me. They're gonna hate me. They're gonna hate me. They're gonna hate me. What am I gonna do? And they're not gonna want to go in the room. And I went home. When I got home, I opened. Well, before I shut them in there, and I had to go finish getting ready for work. And as I finished getting ready for work, I can hear Gwenny from the other room, and I'm trying so hard not to cry, and I'm telling her from the other room, I'm sorry, it's okay. I promise it's okay. It's gonna be okay. Godiva's not much of a crier. Gwenny's a crier, so I learned one thing. I think I'm Gwenny. She was crying, and I had to go to work. Came home from work, went to the cage. They looked at me still like, and I'm like, see, it was okay. It was okay. But I'm like, okay, here's where it all goes down. What's going to happen now? And I let them out of the cage, and they did the same thing normally do. They ran out. And I went, this is what we do every night. I went to the couch, and I sat down, and they jumped to my lap. And they purred. And they rubbed against me, and they purred, and they let me pet them. And I'm like, you love me? You still love me? You still love me? I can't believe you still love me after I shoved you in a cage for your own good, because I had to. You still love me. And I gave them some more ham. I gave them some more ham. They were so happy, and I'm like, they're not going to want to go in the room tonight. They're not going to want to go in the room, because that's what happened last time. When it came time for them to go to be fed, they ran right in the room. And I'm like, are you kidding me? They ran to the cage looking for ham. And I'm like, I don't believe this. See, they had progressed so far from the cats that I first had that didn't trust me very well. They had to trust me because I was their source. I was their source of food. I was their source of water. I was their source of litter box. I was their source of love. I was their source of everything. But they still weren't real sure they trusted me. Then, this time, they still weren't happy about it. They weren't happy at all. But I was surprised how much calmer they were when they got shut in the cage, even though it had been like a year. And even though Gwenny cried, they weren't panicking like they did the first year. When they came out, they were like, we knew it was going to be okay this time, and we still love you. And I related to this so much because this is so much how I feel sometimes, that I feel like somehow God's dumped me in a cage, or he's dumped me in an empty box. God hasn't done it. But, you know, in a way, maybe he has, because I did it. I took the cats. I put them in a cage. But I couldn't make them understand. I wanted to tell them so bad. All I could do is stand there and say, it's okay. It's okay. I'm coming back. I'm coming back, and you're going to be let out. You're not going to be in here forever, but it's going to feel like forever. But I'm coming to let you out, and I love you. And I'm hoping you're still loving me. The first year, they weren't sure that they could trust me. They weren't sure. And I feel, in a way, it was almost like my relationship with God. I'm not sure I trust you to get me out of this. I'm not sure I trust you to get me through this. But, see, they were let out the first time, even though it was very traumatic for them. after the first time, even though they still hated it the second time, they came out like, oh, it was okay again. And they were like, we have a better relationship with you now. See, they had a closer relationship, a more intimate relationship with me. They knew me better. They know me longer. They're more comfortable with me than they were a year ago. And it was like the relationship we had made the difference, even though she sat in there and cried because she was upset. And I think about is that how God feels when we cry? That he knows we have to go. You say, well, why do we have to go through it? I don't know. Just like my cats still don't know why I had to put them in a cage. They still don't know. I don't even know if the fire inspecting people came here because they said it'll only go in some of the apartments. But everybody has to put their pets in a cage. They don't know why I put them in that cage. They'll never know why I put them in a cage. But I know why they had to go in the cage. And I also knew it was going to be okay if they would just relax. If they would just calm down. If they would I had water in there. I had food in there. I was taking care of their needs. If they would just relax, it's going to be okay, even though I know you hate it here. It's a miserable place. It's a miserable place. You're confined. You're in jail. And I'm sorry. But I knew it was okay. And I knew why it had to be done. They did not. And I know that the God's got to feel that same way, that he knows why we have to go through what we have to go through. And we may not know on this side of eternity. But I wonder how it tugged at the emotions of my heart to hear that little baby cry. And I could not let her out. How much does compassion and love must God have for us? When we go through something and he hears our heart cry, let me out. Let me out. Let me out of here. Please, why did you put me in this cage? Why did you shut me in here? Why is this my life? Why am I in this horrible place? And his heart is breaking for us because he knows it's hurting us and that we don't understand everything. But he knows what we have to go through in our lives, and he knows why. He knows why. Just like I knew why. But see, at the end, because they've been through it and they went through it again, they didn't lose their love for me. They didn't lose their relationship with me. They almost did the first time. But the second time, they jumped right in my lap, and I thought, I don't think I deserve this after putting you in a cage. But they jumped right in my lap. And they purred, and they rubbed their head on me like this. And they just looked at me like, oh, we're so glad you're home. We love you. And I'm like, oh, after what you've been through, you still love me. And you had every right to blame me for putting you in the cage because I put you in the cage. You had every right to be upset. But you still loved me. And the thing was, I loved them. And I knew they were safe. And I knew they were protected. And I knew I had to follow the rules of the apartment. And their trauma was so much less. Let me read some Bible verses. Isaiah 12:2 says, God is indeed my salvation. I will trust and won't be afraid. So even though I know they were still somewhat dismayed and a little afraid, the terror level that they had this time was so much less than what it was the first time because they had already lived through it and knew I could be trusted. They knew I could be trusted to let them out, still feed them. Everything was still going to be okay. Everything would go back to normal. They still didn't like the confinement, but they had more trust in me this time than they had before. And I think that's where we need, when we go through things in life, do you have more trust in God now than you had before? Psalm 9:10 says, those who know your name trust you because you have not abandoned any who seek you, Lord. Mark 5:36, this is talking about when Jesus was approached about Jairus' daughter, who was very, very sick, and he came to find Jesus. And while Jesus stopped to heal the woman with the issue of blood, the servants showed up and said, don't bother to bring Jesus anymore. Your daughter's died. And this is such an amazing thing that Jesus did here for Jairus. He turned to him and it said, but Jesus, overheard their report, the report that the daughter had died. And he said to the synagogue leader, don't be afraid. Just keep trusting. He had just gone through hearing, your daughter died. And Jesus said, don't be afraid. It was key to him. You know, interesting thing that the first thing he said to him was, don't be afraid. That to us is our biggest detriment, our biggest, the thing that causes us the most harm is fear. And the first thing he said to Jairus is, don't be afraid. And then he said, just keep trusting. And as we know, he went and he raised her from the dead. 2 Corinthians 5:7 says, we live by faith, not by sight. So even if we are in a terrible place, or we are going through a terrible thing, we don't live by what we see. We don't live by, it's very hard not to, because we are trained to live by and trust our eyes and trust what we see, but that is really not always accurate. It may be the facts, but it's not necessarily the truth. It's not necessarily going to stay the truth. So what we live by is faith. We live by what God tells us and what God says is, because those things that we see can and will change. Genesis 28:15. This is the story in the Bible of Jacob when he left, and if you know the story of Jacob's ladder, when he had a dream and he saw angels ascending and descending the ladder going to heaven, and it said that he looked up and it was the Son of God, and he was said to Jacob, I am with you now. This is when this is after Jacob had got done deceiving his father. After he had got done tricking his father, lying to his father, stealing all the stuff from his brother, God, or Jesus, the Son of God, standing like as God, said to him, I'm with you now. No matter what he had done, he was still with him. I'm with you now. I will protect you everywhere you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done everything that I have promised you. How comforting is that God will not leave us until he's done everything he's promised. Romans 8:28 says, we know that God works all things together for good, for the ones who love God, for those who are called according to his purpose. It doesn't mean everything that happens is good. That means he takes everything that happens and he works it and he changes it, and eventually it is going to be for our good. The events may not be good, but our outcome is going to be good. Psalm 62:8 says, all you people, trust in him at all times. Pour out your hearts before him. God is our refuge. Now, I'm going to read a couple of stories from Daniel, bits of the story, so it won't be too terribly long. Daniel 3:15 and 18. This is the story of the 3 Hebrew children, and most of the people know this story. And this is after they did not bow before Nebuchadnezzar's idol. Everyone was told to bow. They were the only 3 that stood up and said, we will not bow before this false god. We will not do it. And Nebuchadnezzar had commanded that everybody do it. So they were brought before him, and he said, I'm going to throw you in the fiery furnace if you don't bow before the idol, because I told everybody to do it. So I'm going to give you another chance, and I'll let you bow this time. And they said, and this is what they said, we're not going to do it, basically. And it says, Nebuchadnezzar said, he told him, I am going to put you in the fiery furnace if you do not bow. And who is the God who shall deliver you out of my hands? So he is saying, Nebuchadnezzar, I don't think there's a God powerful enough to deliver you out of my hands. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and this is one of the most mispronounced names in the Bible. It is not Abednego, it's Abednego. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. I kind of like their little reply. We don't need to answer you. We don't need to answer you. If this be so, in other words, if you are going to throw us in the fiery furnace, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. I like that they say, so they didn't know 100% if God was going to deliver them out of the fiery furnace. They said he is able to deliver us out of the fiery furnace. But notice they say he will deliver us out of your hand. So what they were saying is, either we're going to die in the fiery furnace and be delivered out of your hand, or God is going to deliver us out of the fiery furnace, and it will still deliver us out of your hand. Either way, they knew they were about to be delivered out of the hand of this king. Whether or not they were delivered from the fiery furnace, they weren't sure. They knew God could do it. They didn't know if he would do it, but they knew one thing: they were being delivered out of the hand of this king. And then they said, but if not, in other words, if he does not deliver us out of the fiery furnace, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. And as we know, they were delivered from the fiery furnace. The Son of God came and was in the furnace with them. They came out without even the smell of smoke from them. The only thing that burned was the bonds that had bound their hands together. And Nebuchadnezzar declared that God was the real God. Then this is the other story in Daniel that most people know, and I haven't really even read this one for a while, so I'm going to read a little more of this one. This is actually the story of Daniel in the lion's den. And this is, both of these are some people who were serving God, godly men that were put in some horrible situations that they didn't deserve. They shouldn't have even been here. They shouldn't have been in captivity. They were in captivity because all of the other Israelites were doing evil. These were not doing evil, but they were still put into captivity, and they didn't deserve it. But they were still there. But yet God delivered them in the midst of the captivity that they were in. He was still giving them deliverance. So this is Daniel 6, verses 3 through 5 and 14 through 28. And this is part of the issue is why that they were so against Daniel. This is what the king was planning. Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials and satraps because an excellent spirit was in him. Is an excellent spirit in you? Do you have an excellent spirit in you, like Daniel did? And the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Wow, what a promotion. He was going to be over the whole kingdom, like Joseph was in Egypt. Then, okay, here came the jealous people. Then the high officials and the satraps sought to find a ground for complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom. So they were trying to find something he was doing wrong. But they could find no ground for complaint or any fault because he was faithful. Is that you? If people tried to find something against you, other than making up a lie, but if they tried to find something real against you, would they be able to, or would they say we can't find anything real because they're faithful? And no error or fault was found in him. Then these men said, we shall not find any ground for complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God. So they tricked the king. They went to the king and said, you need to make a law that for a whole day that nobody worships anybody but you. King thought, that sounds good to me. He wrote it into law, but what he wasn't thinking about, and maybe didn't even think he would need, is that even before he became king, the kings of the past had established a law that once a king wrote something into law, he could not reverse it. So even though he was a king, he still was limited in power and he could not reverse his own laws. So they got him to write this into law that if anybody prays, they're going to have to be thrown into the lion's den. I don't think he knew Daniel prayed. So he's like, okay, or maybe he thought Daniel just wouldn't do it for a day. Oh, it's only one day. Okay, fine. We'll write that into law. That sounds good to me. He probably had a little bit of an ego. So they find Daniel. They were waiting for him to pray. They knew he would do it. As soon as he prayed, they brought him for the king and said, okay, he prayed, he broke your law, he's got to go in the lion's den. And it says, then the king, when he heard these words, that Daniel had broken his law, was much distressed and set his mind to deliver Daniel. So in other words, he thought, okay, he didn't want Daniel to die. He loved him. He was going to set him over his kingdom. And he said, what can I do? He's trying to think of what he can do to deliver him. And he labored till the sun went down to rescue him. He tried everything he could do. Just like me and the cats, I would have done anything to let them out of that cage. I want to let you out of that cage. I'm going to let you out. I want to let you out of the cage. But the king's hands were tied here. Just like mine were on that day. I could not let them out of the cage because that was above me. And the king was hunting for a way out. And it says, and these men came by agreement to the king and said to the king, know, O king, that it is a law of the Medes and Persians. Apparently the king was subject to that law, that no injunction or ordinance that the king establishes can be changed. So they're like, we're reminding you, you can't change it. And he knew he couldn't. I guess they probably would have dethroned him if he'd have changed that, if he'd have gone against that law. So he couldn't do it. And then the king commanded, and Daniel was brought and cast into the den of lions. Oh, he didn't want to do it, but he had no choice. The king declared to Daniel, this is very interesting, may your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you. He wanted him to be delivered. He didn't, I think, know if this God was real or not, but he's like, please let your God deliver you. The one that you serve, let him deliver you. And a stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet, and with the signet of his lords, that nothing might be changed concerning Daniel. So this all followed their laws. They had to go all through this. So nobody, see, they knew nobody could have gotten in there because it was all sealed. So nobody could have snuck in and saved him or fed lions or anything, because all these seals that they had done from their rings. Then the king, this is interesting, the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. He might not have known the real God. He didn't know how to pray to the real God, but he said, I'm not going to eat. And no diversions were brought to him, and sleep fled from him. He stayed up all night long. Then at break of day, the king arose. Now he didn't sleep, but he must have laid down. He arose and went in haste to the den of lions. First thing, as soon as that day was over, as soon as the break of day, it's like, okay, the time is over. Let's go to the den. As he came near to the den where Daniel was, he cried out in a tone of anguish. Why was he crying out in anguish? Because he probably didn't believe he was there. He probably didn't believe it was okay. But he just thought, if there's a chance, if there's just a chance. The king declared to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God. Notice what he's calling God here. The living God. Oh, he's just hoping. Please be a living God. Please be a real God. Please have delivered my friend Daniel. Please be real, God. Please be real. Servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions? Then Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. Can you imagine how that king felt when he heard Daniel actually answered? He was alive. Just like when I came home and the cats jumped all over me and loved all over me like we still love you. And it's like, you made it. You made it through the hard thing. You survived it. And Daniel continued by saying, my God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him, and also before you, O king. I have done no harm. So he's saying, I have not sinned against God, and I've done nothing against you either. So I was blameless. I had no fault. So therefore God sent his angel to deliver me. Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den, because the day was over. Time's up. Get him out. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him. He wasn't even scratched. He wasn't bitten. Nothing. No harm. He probably just laid there and slept all night, because he had trusted in his God. So even though he was in a horrible place, I'm sure he didn't want to be there. I'm sure he thought, God, why are you letting this happen to me? Why in the world are you letting these people put me in a lion's den? Why, God, are you putting me through this? It doesn't say he said that, but he may have. He may have thought, why is this happening to me? He did. I don't know if he even knew if that was made a law or not. But I think it actually said he did know, and he went through it anyway. And prayed anyway. But he may have thought, God, why? I am a righteous man. I've been doing right. Not only have you let me be taken captive and live in this foreign land because of everybody else doing wrong. Everybody else is doing wrong. I have not done wrong, but I'm still living here in this exile. And now the king was about to promote me, but instead you're having me thrown in the lion's den? Why is this happening to me? But see, he trusted God through the darkest, worst moments of his life, where he was confined, where he could have been killed, where he was in the most horrible prison you could ever imagine. And he survived. And God protected him where he was. See, he did that because now God was showing who he was to this king. And it says, and the king commanded that those men who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and cast into the den of lions, they, their children, and their wives. And before they reached the bottom of the den of lions, overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces. Now, there's a couple of things about this I want to say. One, God not only delivered Daniel from the lion's den, he got rid of all Daniel's enemies. He got rid of all Daniel's enemies. He could now be promoted to run the kingdom like the king wanted him to, and the enemies were dead. But one of the things, and this bothers a lot of people about the Bible, is that he also killed their children and their wives. And you think, well, wait a minute, they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. Why God? Now, of course, this was a king. This wasn't God doing this. Why did they destroy the children and their wives? Why did that happen? And why did God even put that in there? Why? Oh, that's gruesome. That's cruel. That's horrible. Why is it in there? I think there's a lesson you can learn from this. These men who were following an evil path, they were following wrongdoing. When they were destroyed, when you are doing something, or this is what I want to say with it, when you are doing something wrong, you not only destroy yourself, you're going to destroy your family too. You will destroy your wife. You will destroy your children. You will destroy your husband, whatever it is. If you are following a path against God, do not think, I'm not hurting anybody by myself. You will destroy your loved ones, because that is what happens. See, this wasn't Daniel's fault. The children and wives were killed. It's not God's fault the children and wives were killed. It's not even the king's fault the children and wives were killed. Whose fault was it? Their husbands and father. It was the men's fault. If they had not followed this evil plot to get rid of Daniel, children and wives would have been fine. They would have still had an intact family. They would have still continued on in their lives. One person was responsible for each wife and children, the husband, the man in the family. So when he followed a path against God, it destroyed his whole family. So if you are following a path that is off God's path, you're going to destroy everybody that you love. It will destroy everybody. That's what it does. That is why God tells us to turn away from sin, because it is going to destroy you and everybody you love. Because when you are destroyed, even if the children and, let's say the wives and the children had lived, let's say they hadn't put them in the lion's den, but their husband and / father had been thrown in the lion's den, what would happen to them now? They would have had, in that era, they would have had no support. They would have had no support. They probably would have died of starvation. They would have not been able to continue on. Women they couldn't own property. They couldn't get jobs. What would have happened to them? They would have had horrible lives. They probably would have died in poverty. So when you go down a path of destruction, you're taking your loved ones down there too. Because even if it doesn't touch them directly, in other words, if they hadn't been thrown in the lion's den, it still would have destroyed their lives. It would have just destroyed it a different way. So now I'm going to read, the rest of that. Then King Darius wrote to all the peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in all my royal dominion, people are to tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God. See, this king now knew, okay, he's really living. He hoped he was living before. He prayed he was living before. Now he knew it for sure. He decreed, everybody is to tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to an end. This was a formerly ungodly king saying all this stuff. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He who has saved Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius, that king, and also the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Psalm 112, 6-8 says, for the righteous will never be moved. He will be remembered forever. He is not afraid of bad news. His heart is firm, trusting the Lord. It doesn't say there won't be bad news. It doesn't say there won't be bad things happen, but it says you are not going to be afraid of bad news, and your heart will be firm, trusting in the Lord. His heart is steady. He will not be afraid until he looks in triumph on his adversaries. It may take a long time to look in triumph on your adversaries, or it may not take a long time, but at some point you will look in triumph on your adversaries. Sometimes your adversary is not who you think. It may not be the person, it just may be Satan. But at some point, you will look on triumph on your enemies. Psalm 28:7 says, the Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him. I was helped. My heart rejoiced. And I thank him with my song. So I am now going to thank him. I'm going to thank him with my song. Even though I have been and still continue to be my little cat, Gwenny, sitting in what I feel like is a cage where I don't want to be and don't like it here and don't like so much stuff here. And I continue to go, meow, meow, meow. It must be what it sounds like. Meow, to God. Please get me out of this. Please let me out of this. I don't want to be here anymore. But just like my little cats, they still loved me, even though I put them in a cage. I still love God, even though I'm in a place I don't want to be and have not wanted to be here for almost 9 years. But he's the one that I trust, even if it looks like I'm in a bad place. And I'm going to sing a song that is from the hymnal in the church I grew up in called My Hope is Built. And I hope this is a blessing to you. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When darkness veils his lovely face, I rest on his unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. His oath, his covenant, his blood support me in the whelming flood. When all around my soul gives way, he then is all my hope and stay. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. When he shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then with him be found, dressed in his righteousness alone, faultless to stand before the throne. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. His oath, his covenant, his blood support me in the whelming flood. When all around my soul gives way, he then is all my hope and stay. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. John 14:1, Jesus says this himself. Don't be troubled. That can be so hard to do because sometimes I feel so troubled. But he says, don't be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. You can trust in God the Father and you can trust in Jesus the Son. 1 John 5:14 says, this is the confidence that we have in our relationship with God. First of all, you have to have a relationship with God. If you don't have a relationship with God, get a relationship with God. You accept Christ as your Savior, turn away from your sins, ask Him to be the Lord of your life, and then you begin your relationship. That's not like the end. You don't say, Jesus, come into my heart, forgive my sins, amen, and then you're done. That's the beginning, not the end. That's where you start the relationship. Just like if you were asked, somebody asked you to marry them, you say, oh, I do, and then you're done, and you never talk to them again. That's not a relationship. That is not how it works. That's the beginning. The beginning of the long, as a matter of fact, your relationship usually begins in dating. But the beginning of your covenant relationship starts when you say, I do. That's the beginning. You're just starting, and then you have a relationship. So this is the confidence that we have in our relationship with God. If we ask for anything in agreement with His will, He listens to us. And one final word for you today, Psalm 145:18, the Lord is close to everyone who calls out to Him. Just like Gwenny calling me. Oh, I was close. I was right there standing by her cage saying, it's okay. It's okay. I promise it's okay. I'm here. You're protected in there. You're safe in there. I have food for you in there. I have water for you in there. You're cared for. I know you don't like it in here. And it's just going to be for a while. And I'm going to come back. And I'm going to let you out. But she didn't understand a thing I was saying. But I'm trying to comfort her. And I was there. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. And I'm going to have to go away for a little while because I have to go to work. But I'm coming back. When I'm coming back, I am setting you free out of this cage. And they had to spend what felt like eternity to them in there, I'm sure. And they still looked at me when I first opened the door like, why? Why did you put us in here? And I still couldn't tell them. But I still said, it's still okay. It's still okay, and I'm still going to let you out. So the Lord is close to everyone who calls on Him and to all who call out to Him sincerely. So know if you are in any sort of a situation, which most of us are in one form, somewhere or another, we're going through something, just call out to God. Know that He is close to you and He's telling you, I know you're in a place that's not very happy right now. Or in this area of your life, you feel like you're in a cage or you're confined or going through something that is not good right now. But it's okay because I'm here. And soon you're going to be free. You're going to be free of it. And I'm going to let you out. But don't break your relationship with Him. Just like the cats didn't with me. Don't break your relationship with Him because He's the one setting you free. And He would only allow you to be in there if it had to be done. I hope you have a blessed week this week. Until next time, good night.